Hi, and welcome to another rendition of How to Survive Healthcare. I'm Kayla Thompson-Riviere, registered nurse turned independent patient advocate, here to bring you all things healthcare that nobody tells you. Today, I have a very special guest with me. This is Miss Jenni Nolan. Jenni comes to us with over 20 years of experience in medical office management, physician and hospital coding and billing, and education and health information management. She is a board certified patient advocate and in 2019 started her business Clear Healthcare Advocacy. Jenni is an absolute medical billing insurance specialist, whiz of all types. So she's here to bring us the top things we need to know about insurance. We joked before we started recording that she could do probably an entire podcast on all things health insurance and billing related. So this definitely is not going to be all inclusive. Perhaps we'll have to have some follow-ups, but a good start to kind of get you pointed in the right direction when you may, like me, I'll identify first off, I know nothing about insurance. So if you're out there going, I don't even know how insurance works, I just think I have it, this one's for you. So take it away, Jenni.
I like that. I think I have insurance. You're probably not the only person like that, unfortunately. So thanks for having me on your podcast, Kayla. We're just going to talk a little bit about like super high level things to know about health insurance. And first, my number one thing, I guess, is that unfortunately you pretty much got to have it, right? Like nobody understands it. Nobody likes it. It's, in my opinion, like making the whole healthcare system worse, but we have to have it. So I think it's just not worth the exposure to not have some form of health insurance. So you can, even with health insurance, or if you don't have it, present as a self-pay patient and get discounts off your healthcare services. But if you get hit with a really big hospital bill, then getting a, let's say, 40% discount off of $100,000 still leaves you with a really big bill. And that's why we have to have that health insurance. So in most cases, some form of health insurance, whether that's through your employer or the marketplace, or even like a cost share program, those will provide you some, like a little bit of a blanket, like hopefully. Obviously, they can all come up with reasons to deny things, but it should protect you from those really big bills. So that's the first thing, I guess. You got to have it, unfortunately. And then another thing to remember is that you do have some options. So a lot of people, most people in our country get their insurance through their employer. And usually your employer, depending on their size, is going to have a couple different plans to offer you. So you might be able to choose something with a lower premium and a higher deductible, or vice versa.
Ooh, what do those words mean?
Yeah, we'll get there. Yep. Or a higher deductible, lower premium, or vice versa, right? So then those employer-sponsored plans are typically the most affordable. Then you've got your marketplace plans for people who don't have coverage through their employer, or find themselves in some other situation where they just don't have insurance. There are cost share plans that often are like religious based, a lot of them, not all of them, where it's just a bunch of people who pay kind of a premium and pool all their money together, and then health insurance claims are paid out of that pool. Then there's Medicare for if you're over 65 or disabled, and then Medicaid, which is typically based on your income. So it's just so much, right? In this country, we have so many different options for health coverage, which is part of the reason it's so expensive. And then back to your question. So number 3, you have to familiarize yourself with the lingo. It is complicated. I often say it should be like if not a high school, probably a high school, like high school seniors should get the basics of this, right?
Right.
If not in college, because it affects everyone. But you need to know what your premium is, what your deductible is, your co-insurance, your copay, what's your out-of-pocket max, what does in-network mean versus out-of-network, what's a prior authorization, which procedures require it. And then the big one is the explanation of benefits. That it used to be old school, a piece of paper that would come in the mail and say, here's your insurance claim from your doctor so-and-so, and here's how we processed it, and here's how much you owe. And a lot of times people, because they don't understand what that document even is, just look at it and throw it in the trash. But if you don't get that and match it up with your bill when it comes, you could be overpaying. Who knows what could be going on. So keep those explanations of benefits.
I've heard a lot of health insurance bills can be incorrect. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. For a million reasons. So it's so complex, right? I always tell people that billing mistakes can be made before a patient even walks in the door. So if I call my OB office and say, hey, do you take Cigna? They might say, oh yeah, we take Cigna, come on in, whatever. And then I get there and I see my doctor and my claim is submitted, but it's denied because my doctor takes the Cigna PPO network, but he's not contracted with Cigna EPO. So, right off the bat, before I even walked into the office, I was given incorrect information. Nobody caught it when I came in and presented my card. And so then you're stuck with an out-of-network bill. And that happens a lot with our marketplace plans because they're super narrow networks. Most states sponsor their marketplace plans, so you can't go out of state for coverage,
Okay.
So there's a lot of confusion there. They're very narrow networks, which is why they're more affordable.
Okay. How could somebody avoid getting themselves in that situation to begin with?
Call ahead, call your provider, and look at your insurance. If you can get on your website and pull up the list of providers there, and if those two things don't match, then something needs to happen. You got to find out where the problem is. But yeah.
Perfect. That makes sense. Good to know.
Another area errors can start is, if I walk into my doctor's office this year with a new insurance card and I present it to them, but for whatever reason, the front desk girl got distracted that day and it never made it into my file, then all of a sudden they're billing my old insurance and not the one that I gave them. So
I've had that happen before.
Yep. Then they draw my blood work and they send it to the lab that my old insurance was contracted with instead of the one that my new insurance is contracted with. And you've just got like out-of-network bills and things happening. The old insurance being billed, in which case you'll probably just it'll kick back and you'll just get a bill from the provider for the full amount. And then you've got to straighten that out. There's just a million little places where things can go wrong. So,
right.
I think that's why I like my work too, is when it comes to me, like everything is different. Every problem is different. So.
Sure. So what are some of the typical people who come to you? What are some of the most common problems that you help them sort out?
Sure. Usually a lot of the time people reach out when their bill is either getting ready to go to collections or it's just gone to collections. So, in the billing cycle, typically most hospitals or providers will send like 3 nice little bills. Like, here's your first bill, your second, your third. Then they start to get a little meaner. They're like,
right,
this is past due. And then you get the next month that's like, okay, this is really past due, and we're going to send it to collections if you don't respond. And then once it's sent, you will get a letter from collections. And that's typically when people reach out to me. I don't know if they
it's not a problem till it's a problem.
Right. I think they just literally thought it was going to go away, and it doesn't. So I have a lot of people reach out to me for that. And at that point, I will do like a deep review. Like, do you even owe this money in the first place? You know, maybe they're being sent to collections for something that they don't even actually owe. So I always ask for, okay, show me the original statement, show me your EOB from insurance. Let's put these together and see if you actually owe this money. And then if they do, we can try to negotiate the balance down. If they don't owe it, we can still work with collections. They still have to submit claims through insurance, and we can still fix things on the back end. So a lot of people reach out to me then fortunately, I have some people who reach out proactively. Maybe they've been diagnosed with cancer or some other long-term illness, and they don't even want to deal with the billing side at all. They just want to focus on staying well, and the physical and emotional parts of their journey. And so I can take on the burden, review every claim that comes through, tell them, yes, you can pay this bill, don't pay that bill, negotiate balances, all that good stuff. So it runs the gamut.
Sounds like that would be really helpful.
It is. I know. I don't want to pat myself on the back. That's super helpful.
Healthcare is unfortunately one of these things. It's, actually once I became a nurse for, more than a year and was able to start to look around and really seeing the effects that people have going through the system, it amazes me how anybody gets through without this kind of outside help. Because it is just, certain things that have happened with my family, I'm like, they would not have gotten this care, treatment, or in your case, these bills figured out without having this almost like insider knowledge.
Absolutely. It's like the system is not set up for you to navigate on your own. And so that's why there's you on the clinical side, right? And me on the billing side. Like, we shouldn't have to exist. It shouldn't be this hard. But it is.
Right. Yeah. If healthcare works, we would be out of jobs. Exactly. And that's honestly what our ultimate goal.
Right. It really is.
Be.
Yep.
So I have a question, and this is, sorry if it's putting you on the spot. So this is something I've heard a lot though. So what is your recommendation, or can you point people in a direction who perhaps are self-employed like you or I, and maybe their spouse is as well, or for whatever reason doesn't have employer coverage, but the marketplace plans, they're kind of pricey if you're not below a certain income threshold. What's your recommendation in those situations?
Fortunately, I'm not in that situation, but I know a lot of people who are. And you got to have it. I don't know how you make it work, but I suppose maybe a cost share plan might be an option. But I know a lot of times people get hung up on the cost of the premium for a marketplace plan, and they start looking elsewhere, and they'll end up in short-term policies and ones that aren't ACA compliant. And it's not worth it. If you can scrape together the money for that premium, I think you're going to save yourself a lot of headache and money in the long run, because the short-term policies that are more affordable, they can still deny things for pre-existing, and they don't have to cover routine services that are covered at 100% through the ACA. I just tell people they make up their own rules as they go along, and they're just taking your premium and trying to do everything they can not to have to pay a claim.
Yeah. Now, we had put a pin in it before. Some of these terms, premium, deductible, some of the other things, can you just briefly go over them for our audience members who really aren't familiar?
Sure. Yeah. So your premium is the amount that you're going to pay out of pocket every month just to say that you have insurance, right? It's the end of the year. If you don't go to the doctor one time, you've just lost your premium and gotten nothing in return. And then your deductible, which didn't really used to be a thing. Now over the last, 15, 20 years, we're seeing deductibles, and they're getting higher and higher and higher because the cost of healthcare has gotten higher and higher and higher. And employers are having to cost shift, right? So they might still pay your premium, your monthly premium to have the insurance, but they're going to select a plan that has a higher deductible so that the employees themselves have to pay more before the insurance plan kicks in, because those dollars are ultimately coming out of the employer's pocket, right? So your deductible is the amount that you would have to hit for the year before insurance will kick in. Now, the deductible, as long as you're in an ACA compliant plan, you don't have to hit your deductible first for like your screening mammogram or a screening colonoscopy if you're old enough. So those things are still going to be covered at 100% without you having to hit your deductible. And then once you do hit your deductible, most people have a co-insurance. So that is like a typical one for in-network is like 20% co-insurance. So once I've paid my $5,000 up front, then my insurance will kick in at 80% and I pay 20%. And then you keep doing that until you finally hit your out-of-pocket max. And that's the most that you should have to pay for the entire year for healthcare services. So that's going to be your deductible plus your co-insurance plus any co-pays. And those are typically like, let's say $10,000. So that's like your worst case scenario for the year. If at the end of the year you start adding up and it looks like you paid more than 10 grand, then there's probably a problem somewhere.
That's what we call
and then there's still, then call me. Then there's some plans still have copays for certain visits. I find that those are few and far between. I don't know. Do you have a copay with your plan, Kayla? Like you pay $25 for an office visit?
I think it depends on what kind of a visit
it is. Yeah. And that's typical too. I remember, and I'm older than you, but when I first graduated from college, the plan that I had, I just went to the doctor and paid a $10 copay every time. It didn't matter how many times I went to that doctor. I could go every day of the week if I wanted, and I would just pay $10. And those were like the good old days, right? That was before we had deductible and co-insurance. And that's why nobody knows what this stuff means. It was just kind of like gradually like dropped on our laps. And we're like, what is this? We don't even know. So
some of these services that are covered versus ones that aren't, for somebody who's listening and isn't sure where to find that information, what's the best way that they can figure that out for themselves?
Ooh, good question. You could, Google it. I could probably get you a link, but there are, I would just search for ACA covered preventive services or something.
Okay,
like
so
that.
it's not specific to the insurance plan.
If it's ACA compliant, they have certain things that they have to cover. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. Now, I'm sure you have worked with a plethora of different insurances over the years. Do you have a preference? Are any of them better than the other ones?
No, they're all equally horrible. You had to know I was going to say that, right? Like, really?
Well, I mean, I was suspicious, but
I don't like one over the other. I can only say back to that like short-term policy. Don't fall for those. Stay with something on the marketplace or employer-based that is ACA compliant, or you're going to get hosed. It's funny with that whole pre-existing condition thing. It used to be legal for all plans. It's like, even if you think that you don't have a pre-existing condition, they will find something that you went to the doctor for 5 years ago that you can't even remember that you had it. You're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I did go to physical therapy 5 years ago. And now you're not going to cover it because I did, right? Because it's the same.
Yeah, that's wild.
I know, it's crazy. So yeah, I do not have a favorite, but short-term plans are definitely my least favorite.
Got it. Well, I thank you. You've provided us so much information and a bit of insight into this, starting to unravel this very confusing world here. If somebody in the audience is listening and says, you know what, I have that bill that went to collections that I don't know what to do about, how can they reach out to you and get a hold of you and maybe work with you?
Sure. And that's funny because my fifth like little bullet point that I was going to say is you're never going to fully understand it. You're just not. I deal with this all day, every day, but because every insurance plan is different, every doctor's office that you go to is different, every hospital has a different billing policy, nobody's going to ever understand it all. So if somebody is just completely overwhelmed and does not feel like they can handle it on their own, they can reach me via my website. It's clearhealthcareadvocacy.com. I'm also on Facebook at Clear Healthcare Advocacy, I believe, and Instagram, LinkedIn, all over the place.
Okay, and when we post this, we'll share some of those links in the comments. So you should be able to check the comments or the show notes and find that. And if you can't, feel free to reach out to me.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jenni. And as always, I hope this was helpful to you guys. If there's something, a healthcare topic that you would like to learn more about, please let me know and I'll be happy to try to get that on the show. Thank you. Have a great day.